Welcome to another Tech Stuff Tuesday. This week, we're going to build a distortion detector for under $25. This way, you won't have to have an oscilloscope. It'll cost quite a bit less than an oscilloscope. You can rely on your ear. You won't have a visual notification for this, and I may be able to adapt it to where we can add a visual to it at some point. Now, I'm not one to take credit for somebody else's work, put my own name on it, and then say it's the greatest thing ever. So this actually goes credit to Rockford Fosgate for the basis of this design. Now I am taking their design, which is in the description below, a link to that PDF. I'm taking that and I'm altering it just a little bit to suit some needs, which will be very apparent if you compare the two things. But here is what we need. First, we've got some alligator clips, and these I purchased with wire already attached to it. Just as an example, if you're not so great at soldering, then maybe you can't solder on the ends here so well. So that's already got the wire on it to make that a little bit easier for some people. We've got RCA connections that are screw type in, and these do have positive negative markings as well on these. So again, if you're not good at soldering small things, these are available. We've got three types of resistors: 100,000 ohm, 10 ohm, and 10,000 ohm. So we'll need all three of those. And we've got this end that again has the lead on it, in case you can't solder things so small so well. And this is a phono jack input that which is actually a speaker that has a battery in it. This is intended for phones and that kind of thing, but it's actually going to plug into there, and this is what we will have our audible notification from. This was the most expensive part of it. It was about $15. And the rest of this stuff, you can't just buy one. So you might get one or two of these. I think this actually was a single. This I had to buy 2 of them. This I think I bought 10 of them. And this was actually cheaper. Instead of even buying one bulk pack of one resistor, it was actually cheaper to buy a huge bulk pack of a ton of resistors. It was like $6 to get all of those and a ton more that I don't need, and then a bunch of these that I also didn't need. So if you have a local place where you can pick up this kind of thing, that might work out for you pretty inexpensive. Same thing with these, and they're a little bit cheaper if you buy just the alligator clips without that on it. But again, I'm showing the easiest way that you can do this, but you can realistically build this whole thing for under $20, especially if you've already got something like this around, or if you substitute something else. Maybe you just take this and go and output into another amplifier or something like that. You can adapt that into other things where you can just plug into it, even a whole other stereo if you wanted to do that. But all of this is under $25. You might also need a little bit of speaker wire, which we've got this handy dandy spool from Sundown Audio, available on emfcaraudio.com. And heat shrink we may also be using to kind of clean this whole thing up. There are 2 parts to this. You have the part coming from the head unit to check for clipping there, which would go essentially what will look like directly to the speaker. Then we have the second part that's going from the amplifier into that speaker. So there's 2 separate things that we're going to fabricate here, and I'll show you how to do those and explain exactly what is going on. First, we'll start with the one from the head unit. A couple things to note. I made a mistake at the beginning there. I pulled the wrong one out of the package. It's not a 100K resistor, it is a 100 ohm resistor. So in this one, we have got a 10,000 ohm resistor and a 100 ohm resistor. Now these are 1/8 watt 2%, and these are critical kind of things to look at here. You want to make sure you get the right ones. The percentage tolerance has got to be correct. Make sure you get the correct wattage as well. Trying to make this as easy to see as possible, but we're dealing with tiny resistors, so bear with me here. Because we're doing this ourselves, we can make everything whatever length we want. So if you want to make this RCA connection super long, you can. If you want to make it super short, you can. I'm going with about 1 foot long, and we've got a little bit more left on here as well. So we could actually have a head unit sitting there and not be super tied to it, but also not fooling with a ton of wire. I've also gone ahead and secured our wire to here for our positive and negative, and you want to observe polarity. This will be the positive, this will be the negative, and they are marked there and there on this particular example. If you're soldering your own, you'll see that it is in the center and the outside. Center is the positive, outside is the negative. So we've got our positive as silver, and the 10K, which is this one, you want to make sure you observe the right one. That's the one that's going to go directly on our positive here. And we don't have a lot of material, so I like to wrap that completely around and make sure that we can get a really good solder joint in there. And on this end of it, this is actually 2 channels, so we have left and right on these. And the design calls for mono. So what we're going to end up doing is the red and the white are our left and right positives. We're going to tie those together, so they're going to act as one. On either channel, we're going to get the same signal going out to the speaker. There's also stereo, so that's something else to consider. So now we have 1 positive, 1 negative. The other end of this positive on the resistor, the resistor does not have a polarity, mind you. This is the positive on the speaker wire. We've got a lot of excess, so we're going to cut that off. So that is our direct connection on the positives. We're going straight through the resistor. Now for the negative, we're not going to go directly from here to here in itself. This other resistor, the 100 ohm, we're actually going to go from this side of it. It's important that we're on this side of the resistor. So this is on the output side. We're going to go from that over to here, and then here to here. So the resistor is going to be intercepting this connection, or bridging it. Okay, so now that we've got our connections made, we've got to solder them. So we're going to go ahead, get this point, and this point soldered. Now, if all these soldered, this should function, but we want to make sure that we have all these connections isolated. So we are going to tape this up to make sure that we cannot have any connections going on here. And then we're going to heat shrink it. Now, you could cut the wire lengths a little bit different to have this line up a little bit better. That's a bit of a hindsight thing that you learn when you do these things. This is the first one of these I have ever made. So live and learn. On the next one, do a little bit cleaner job of it. But that is what we're working with. So we'll get everything here isolated from each other, make sure we don't have any issues there. And then we'll move on to the other side of it for the amplifier output. I've got this one all bundled up, looks really nice, but remember, this is still kind of frail, so you got to be gentle with this unless you do some type of reinforcement. Maybe you would wrap it in something else or put some kind of stint in there before you do that, which would be one idea. But this isn't going to get used that often, so I'm not incredibly worried about it, or I could stiffen this after the fact. But this does look pretty nice. We've got some good length on this. So this will be the head that goes into the head unit. This will be the end that goes into the speaker. And at this point, we can check distortion on the head unit. And I'll show you how to use this at the end of this. But if you like what we're doing here, make sure you give us a thumbs up. Consider scribing. And if you want to support the channel, you can do so through Patreon in the links below, as well as on emfcaraudio.com, where we have the full line of EMF audio products, Sundown audio products, XS power, SBC, and audio control. And that includes the Banhammer V2 pre-order that is currently going on. So now with the first one done, we're going to start on the amplifier output side. It is just about as easy as this one. So as you can tell, not very labor intensive. On to the next one. Turns out I was right. We do need the 100K. There's actually 4 resistors. I was thinking there's only 3, which is why I got confused. But we do need the 100K going across the positive on this one. And we need the 100 ohm going across, bridging the positive and negative on this one. So once again, we've combined our stereo into a mono, and we are not going to directly connect those. We're going to have our resistor between them. So again, this is the 100K resistor. And that is going to go on our positive. Now the reason that these are alligator clips is so you can safely go directly to bare wire. So if you're at the sub, or maybe even from the head unit directly, not using an amplifier, you would use this. Otherwise, you could have just bare wire going directly into the amp, but that would be removing the speaker wire, putting this one in to do that. The alligator clip can make that a little bit easier. So our positive is done. The negative, as I said, we're going to bridge, and we want to go on the output side. So I'm going to flip this around so it's the same as it was on the other one. This is the input, and this is the output. Remember, we're going out to the speaker, so that is our output side. We want to be on this side of the resistor, so we're going to tie this one on right here. And then our negatives are going to get tied together, as well as the other end of this resistor. So now we've got 3 points to solder back. And that is going to be here, here, and here. Now with these soldered, this is ready to go. Same thing. We'll want to isolate here and here to make sure it can't touch any of this. We'll go back and use heat shrink over this entire thing and have a nice clean connection. We've got our connection to go out from the head unit to check distortion. We've got our connections for out from the amplifier to check distortion. We've got our battery powered speaker that's going to give us an audible alert when we have distortion. So now I'm going to show you how exactly you would use this thing. I've got our head unit. We've got our speaker plugged in. It goes directly into the RCA output. Now, something to consider. This speaker is not going to actually produce low frequencies, like 40, 50 hertz. It's not going to do it at all. So pretty much if you're hearing just about any noise coming out of it, it's going to be indicating that it's clipping. On this one, we're using the full range output. It is set to high pass, so we should have actual frequencies all the way down to 20 hertz, so that's not a consideration for us. However, if you have your head unit set to where you're crossing over, maybe you're high passing at say 80 hertz, you're not going to hear anything below that anyway. So if you try tuning it, like say at 40 or 50 hertz, but you're high passing, that's not going to be an accurate result for everything else that's going on there. That's also one reason why we don't say use one specific frequency, because you could be clipping at other frequencies, as you may have seen in other videos. Some other devices out there say you have to use 1 kilohertz and 40 kilohertz. And here is an example why that's bad. So I'm going to demonstrate with a sweep, and I'm going to run this a couple different times so you can see the difference. And I'm also going to just pick 40 and 1000 hertz because I happen to have them already on this flash drive, so you can also see the difference there. But the higher the frequency that you choose, the harder it's going to be to distinguish that noise. So if you're trying to do it at like 10 kilohertz, and I have no idea why you'd be doing that, it might be kind of hard to make the distinction because of the sound that this produces. And I'm going to put the microphone very close to it to make sure that you can definitely hear what's going on. But from the sweep, I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I know that 25 on the volume is clean, 26 is dirty. I already know that, but I'm going to use that as the tipping point for the example. Here we go at volume 25. That should be clean. You'll notice at the low frequencies, we don't actually hear anything. The speaker cannot produce it. And as we get further up, we're going to actually hear the signal of what's being reproduced. Starting to hear it come in as part of the sweep. Now we're going to run this same thing again, one volume up, and we'll see if you can hear the difference. Now, if you couldn't hear that, I'm going to go back down to volume 25, and I'm going to bounce between 25 and 26 as it goes through the sweep so you can hear the distinct difference. So there you go. You can clearly hear the difference in the regular tone and the clipping and not clipping. And that's directly off the head unit. So you don't have to pick one specific frequency. You can do any of them. However, it might work into your system depending how you have your crossover set and that kind of thing. So now that we know we definitely clip at 26, which I kind of cheated and already knew that, we can plug in the signal into the amplifier, and we're going to be using the Sundown Audio SAX 50.4 that we've done in videos before, and we're going to tie alligator clips to the outputs and check the output from the amplifier and see what point we get the same result. Now for this example, I've got the oscilloscope also connected to the amplifier, so you can put a visual connection to what it is that you're hearing so you know what you're listening for. Now remember I said 40 hertz is not going to be produced by this little speaker. If you have something else tied into it, like a larger stereo, it could. So anything that you're hearing out of the speaker is going to be the distortion detection. So again, I'm going to cheat because it's not going to be very loud, which is the one downside to this. You might have to put this up to your ear to hear it. But we're going to go up on the gain because our head unit is at volume 25. The maximum cleanest volume. We're playing 40 hertz for this example. We're just going to go up on the gain until we actually hear anything at all coming from the speaker. And right there you can barely hear it. And you can see on the wave it's starting to clip. Back that off. Right there. Right when you can barely hear it. So you can back off a little bit and then we're definitely clean. So it's definitely a little bit tricky when you're using lower frequencies. If you're doing it for bass, you might want to go up to say maybe 80, where this will be a little bit more likely to play it, or depending on the speaker that you're actually using. So that is 40 hertz. We're going to go to 1 kilohertz, but I'm going to turn this gain down first. So you can see that we can hear 1 kilohertz, but we want to hear for the distortion. So we're going to do the same thing again. And it's going to get louder. And then it's going to sound different. Right there you can hear it sound different. So right when you have that change of pitch where all of a sudden you get a little raspy sound that goes with it, that is when you're distorting. So that's all pretty simple to do, and we're going to do a sweep just to make sure you can hear it across the board. So we're going to go up to volume 25. I've left the gain where it is. And you see just a little bit of clipping, and you can hear it just a little bit. So that gain position that we had, while it was okay at 1 kilohertz, down low it just barely wasn't for whatever reason. I don't know. So we're going to back that off just a little bit. We're going to start that sweep over. And now we don't hear anything, and you can see on here, it is clean. So you may want to do a sweep just to double check yourself when you go to do that. But coming up through here, everything seems fine now. So we've got a full sweep, 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. Everything is good, no distortion. We're using one tiny $15 powered speaker. We've made our own cabling so we can check all this stuff, and it costs under $25. Maybe at some point I'll figure out how to integrate some type of visual notification, be it an LED or something like that. But for right now, if you just had to put this right up to your head to hear it, because it might be a little bit noisier or something like that, you could totally do that. You can make the cable lengths as long as you want or need. So if you want to be able to have it outside the car while you have somebody else fooling with the gain or anything like that, you can do that as well. And that is the beauty of a DIY project like this. Who'd have thought you could build your own distortion detector for under $25? And the information has been sitting on the internet all this time. All you had to do was look. This stuff, surprisingly simple to put together, works pretty well. Loud environments, it would be a little bit difficult to manage, and you might have some trouble hearing it if you can't hear certain frequencies. But I think it's pretty clear that you can hear the distortion that's happening in there, as you saw in the video. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and you're probably already subscribed on YouTube. And if you're not, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We're going to have a sale for the tax refund season with EMF Audio and Sundown Audio products, but that's coming February 15th. Keep an eye out for that on emfcaraudio.com and social media platforms, so make sure to follow us there so you can get those updates. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you're going to build one yourself, comment below. Let me know how easy it is for you to do it and how useful you think it's going to be. If you have any questions about this build, make sure you comment that below as well. If you have any other comments on other videos, you should comment on those videos. So go back, watch our other Tech Stuff Tuesday videos, comment on those. I'll go back and read them. I'll answer when I can, as best I can. If you only clicked on this video to post a complaint and give it a thumbs down, you probably didn't watch this far. Make sure you shop emfcaraudio.com so you can support this channel and get great products at a great price. And I'll see you again in another Tech Stuff Tuesday.